we're live.
Great. I I was not signed in to my Substack app. I have no idea why.
There you go.
Okay.
It's fascinating how this little new adaptation that Substack has offered us is really challenging. And it sort of like I thought, oh, wait, David, he's got it. This is going to be no problem. Because this is the third time I've had technical issues with starting these lives. And here we are. My armpit's already sweaty because but we did it. So that's the magic here.
We did it. Well, perhaps Substack should not have tried to fix what didn't need to be fixed.
I think that's exactly the case, as Apple did with their liquid glass on their iPhones, which is just the most obnoxious thing I have ever seen. So please, if anyone from Apple's listening, remove that. We already have some lovely people joining us, and I want to, first of all, David, thank you for joining me. This is um, it's really special to have you here, and you come from a unique perspective and angle. And I want to just do a little intro for those that don't know you. You write from and live from within the Manhattan bubble. And when I
Yep.
say bubble, it sounds like, it's this sort of elite special place. And it kind of is. And I love that you are exposing it. You look directly at the wealth, the status, the family, the success, not to like justify them or put them like a feather in your cap. But you also don't dismiss them. And that's hard to do. Instead, you ask harder questions about what they might promise, what they deliver, and what they don't. So I've really enjoyed getting to know you through your Substack, Sparks in Culture? Sparks of Culture?
Yeah. I mean, I've thought about changing the name because I'm not sure what it really means, but different things spark me to write. But anyway.
Yeah, Sparks in Culture. I actually, it is a good one because it makes me think. And it encompasses so much, which is what your writing does. You don't focus on one thing. I mean, you've written across the spectrum from personal anecdotes about your mother and father to, the celebrity life. Not your life specifically, but celebrities and how that their lives can generate envy in us or comparison. So anyway, you spent 40 years working in finance. You lived in a world that was about fixing problems, managing risk, maintaining control. And then you stepped away from it all to focus on writing and philanthropy. And it's so interesting to me. I'm just really looking forward to talking to you today about where that control that you used to have now fails, or where you thought you had the control and then you surrendered and something new emerged. So this is going to be a unique conversation. Thanks for being brave and joining me.
Please, it's been a pleasure to get to know you through meeting on Zoom in real life and reading your memoir. So I've been looking forward to this conversation.
So I think when we first talked, you had a little idea of where you might take it. When I first said, what is something that you couldn't control in your life, and how did that end up being exactly what you needed? And you had a thought about that, and I'm curious if that's where you want to take it today, or if you have other thoughts, or start there, and then we'll.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start there. I think it's very much a cliche. I never had a pet before, and I really didn't want a pet, didn't want the responsibility of it, never understood the whole pet human connection. I thought people who were, in love with their pets it just seemed very odd to me. And I told my wife Debbie that if we, she really thought it would be good for us to get a dog. And I said, anything I do with the dog is a bonus, which is kind of an obnoxious thing to say, I have to say. And I said, but I did. I said that, and then I totally fell in love, and now she's my dog. It's like I have a very special connection with her, and it's been about 8 years. But I've met other men who have had a similar experience where they say, "I'm not the dog type," and then it
How
all
much
changes.
how much convincing did Deborah have to do? Like, what was that duration like, and what was going on inside of you when you were like, this isn't gonna happen?"
Um, I I met I met Sophie and her brother who were being fostered along with their mother by a woman, and who had the mother was a rescue and was rescued from the street when she was pregnant and gave birth in the shelter. And I would say 5 to 10 seconds.
Oh.
I saw them. They were crawling all over me. I couldn't believe how cute they were and how I responded. And it was, yeah, it was instant. You know, this is something I really want. Um,
And and then so all the things that you were assuming about caring for a pet and the lack of control and then, their needs and all of that, did that just dissipate right away, or what was that like to sort of find a routine with Sophie?
well, I was nervous that we were doing right by Sophie. So she really, um, like, I don't like leaving her alone, even for for a few hours. Um, and when I come home, I get down on the floor and we're cuddling and she's excited. And yeah, I mean, so she does restrict like, I don't like to travel that often and leave her.
Mhm.
Um, so it's actually become more of a burden to Debbie because I restrict my travel. So she would rather travel more. And Sophie's definitely a factor in how often I want to travel because
Yeah.
I feel bad about leaving her. But I mean, that's when you talk about kind of not, not being a great predictor of what you're going to like. I always think about that if I,
Mhm.
if I'm thinking, oh, I'm not going to like this, then um, I have the Sophie example. Well,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be sure until I try it. But
Eh,
I tried to think a little bit more. Uh, I don't know if this is correct, but more panoramically about my life. And when you said what's one thing I'm glad that would typically be thought of as a flaw that
mm,
was never corrected. And I'm not saying that uh, it, you know, flaw may again be a too pejorative a word, but so I was thinking about that, and I came up with two things because it's very, what happens to you can definitely be governed by things that you don't like about yourself or initially. So the one thing that I think was or has been fixed was when I was a teenager, I was very awkward looking or felt very awkward looking, as a lot of teens do. But I heard a couple of comments when I was around 13 or 14 about my appearance that made me feel for a very long time that I was hideous.
mm.
And I know 'cause I look back at my pictures and say, well, I may not have been, a candidate for a leading man role, but I wasn't hideous. But that's how I thought of myself
Yeah,
because
that's
when you
how we
hear
hear those
comments,
things.
and so I thought of that, and then I thought, well, maybe I'm never going to have a girlfriend, and no one will ever like me, and particularly any girl that I thought was attractive wouldn't like me. I did have a girlfriend in high school, but she broke up with me to get married, which was kind of very, very, very peculiar. Um, to an older guy. I remember he was 27. Um,
Wow.
and she broke up with me as I was going off to college. And then nothing remarkable. And then I met Debbie. Um, and yeah, and I think my enthusiasm for Debbie was maybe
Mm.
a factor in like thinking this can't be true and this is true and I don't want to blow this. And so
Oh,
I think that was maybe something that was good that I felt that way.
wow. Okay, this is a really great perspective. So, you're making me think about the value of insecurity. I should do an in defense being insecure with oneself because um, there is a lack of expectation, and I'm speaking because my husband would completely be nodding his head right now. He grew up like little Christian boy, didn't think any girl, never knew when a girl was attracted to him. He just thought I was just the stupidest, nerdiest little kid, and nobody would ever like him. So when a girl would pay attention, it was like, first of all, I must have a booger in my nose. And second of all, when they dated, it was like he gave it everything. He really saw the beauty that was coming from this connection. And to this day, he's 62 and he's still like, wow, you love me? So, you actually wrote about a really sort of sweet experience around that insecurity. You were at Greece with an outdoor theater with
Oh, right.
your brothers and your dad, and you experienced a moment of, sort of the teenager. Were you a teen or were you a little bit younger?
No, I think I was 16. I'm pretty sure I was 16 because I remember I looked up when Grease came out. So
Okay.
yeah, I was 16.
Yeah, and so you had a moment of being rescued by your dad, which as a
Yeah.
16-year-old, you might not necessarily want to have happen in front of your peers, but it was the way that you saw that, at least in hindsight, was quite beautiful. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I was very embarrassed because I was 16 and felt I was very awkward. And I just seen this movie about all the cool kids at Rydell High in Greece. And that wasn't me or really, you know. And then we were in New Jersey and people were um and so I was um very, I don't know if it's nerdy, nebbishy or whatever, but I had left a bag of candy in the movie theater. And I went back to get the candy, of course, because candy was just about the most precious substance that I knew of at that point. And I was just sort of carelessly waving the bag back and forth, and it grazed a car. And this girl who is, I think, and maybe I'm confusing it with the Springsteen song, but in my memory, she's sitting on the hood of the car because it's New Jersey,
Yeah.
um, and so she yells at me like, "Watch the car!" like in a kind of very loud, blaring voice. And for some reason, I summoned the bravery to say, "Why don't you just shut up?" Well, she misheard my "shut" for an expletive,
Yeah.
and she starts screeching, that kid just told me to go fuck myself," or something like that. And her boyfriend, who seemed very large and threatening to me at the time, came out and put his hand around my neck
Mm.
and said, "Get down on your knees and apologize." And then my father came over and diffused the situation in a very sort of um, gentle but authoritative way, and I was able to escape any sort of further what I thought of was humiliation. But looking back on it, I think he was really heroic in that he was able to, just take me out of it and just say it was a mistake. And I don't remember his precise words, but
Yeah.
whatever he said, I think he said it with sort of a lot of confidence and authority. So,
So where did you take that insecurity after, you hear you had a moment of like embarrassment with these teenagers, and you're with your other peers in high school, maybe not the same ones, but you had an experience of your dad coming to sort of your rescue. Did did I won't, I guess my question is was there a part of you that could take on your father's role at times when you were feeling insecure and be the hero?
well, because it was the summer, I was with my two younger brothers who were at that time would have been, you know, 10 and 9, and that so it was just the four of us, and I wasn't with any peers. And so with my brothers, they always looked up to me as their older brother. So they were, I would say, kind of a bomb, BALM, against my insecurity because they looked up to me. And so I would spend a lot of time playing with them and almost in a, you know, at that age, difference, I'm an older brother, maybe a little bit fatherly like, but I never had a similar situation. So my brothers were my younger brothers, at that point in time, and this changed not too many years later, did not tease me mercilessly. Um,
Mhm.
and when they got to be in their teens, that started, but that was okay. Uh, so uh, yeah, so I think it was very. It certainly didn't solve my insecurity, but I really admire what the way my father handled himself. And my father was always a very confident person.
Mm,
More and I definitely put him on a pedestal, and he was a great golf player. Um, he just everything seemed to, from my perspective, go his way, and I really loved, spending time with him. And but I also felt that I would never achieve the level of either confidence or competence that he had growing
mm,
up. Not that, and not that he did anything to further that. But it just that was my perspective, that like, you know, I'll never meet, if I thought about it in these terms, I don't mean to get Oedipal here, but I would never meet, someone like my mother, who was, I thought was, very pretty, um, and had a lot of good qualities.
yeah. Well,
And
it
I
seems
just,
like you've
yeah,
internalized your father in a lot of ways, because I experience you as someone that's very charismatic, very confident, very in tune with the world, and sort in a graceful way, not in sort of a, showy way. And I would imagine a lot of that is some sort of internalization of how you saw your father.
yeah, I mean, I think it's partly that. I think it's partly my age. It's taken me a while to I feel more comfortable than I've ever felt. And I'm, about to be 64. And I think it's really only been in the last 3 or 4 years where I've really felt very much comfortable in pretty much any situation.
Hmm.
So I feel much more in control now than at any other point in time in my life. And so the other thing that I thought about when you posed your question about what has been fixed or unfixed was, for a very long time, even though um, I had a wife who we loved each other, had a family, kids, and everything. I felt for a very long time insecure about. Um, I felt very shy. I think I would put it that way. I was not a good. I was very good at all the stuff I was a great student. It just came naturally to me. And I was very good at work at solving problems. Um, but I was never someone who was uh, at all aggressive or brash because I that sort of wasn't in me. And part of that may have been insecurity. Part of that was just, just fear of upsetting people. Um, I remember one of my really my chief mentor told me that one of my flaws was that I lacked the ability to BS people.
Mm,
Like, I
mm.
didn't have a good patter. Like, someone would ask me a
Yeah,
question, and I'd think very much like
you're very sincere.
I never wanted to stretch the truth,
Yeah.
or exaggerate at all, which is in business. I'm not saying you ought to. You certainly shouldn't lie, but to have sort of an angle on things as opposed to saying exactly what you think, um, could be a better way to go in terms of um, getting clients or talking to
Yeah.
investors or whatever. And I lack that. And I guess now, whether it's with my family or my friends or talking to someone like you on Substack Live or in the other things that I'm involved with, I do have more confidence than I had in the business setting because I knew I lacked something.
Mm,
And so I would say that if I didn't lack that, if I had, um, if I wasn't held back, I think I would have perhaps drifted into, sort of a master of the universe
mm.
arrogance role.
Interesting.
And I think I don't know if it's rationalizing, you never know, but I think
Yeah.
it was probably good that I wanted to be a homebody because that also, I could have, if I was more successful at work and thriving, that's how people, you keep coming back for more and you go on business trips and that becomes your life because everybody is encouraging you. And I could have definitely been one of those people, but because I lacked that,
Mm,
I don't know, self assurance, I like being at home. I'm naturally a homebody. Um,
mm.
I think that helped me have a more balanced life. Like people will say,
Yeah.
"Oh, you were home for dinner every night," which is rare if you're in a finance career, and it's true. But I wanted to be home for dinner every night.
Yeah. It
So I was like,
tempered you.
"Yeah,
It
definitely."
that's you're making a real case for insecurity. And, our everything in our culture is like, "Ah, that's just a terrible thing to be." But I love where you're taking this, David. You're mining all of this thread that you had even, as a young lad that really shaped you into who you are today. And I'm wondering, do you still you're saying you feel now in your life, you're confident and you probably don't experience insecurity in the ways that you would before, but I'm almost wondering if you do, but you're okay with it now.
I don't. I guess I know what I don't put myself into situations where I feel insecure.
Mm.
Um, so I don't know what. I'm not even sure what those. Well, there have been some times in tennis tournaments where I've felt the whatever they call it when you start double faulting and things like that, but choking perhaps, but in sports terms. But other than that, I
What
don't.
about aging? Does aging make you feel insecure?
I think there are fears that come with aging, but I think fear is different than insecurity.
Mm.
So that's what I would say. The other thing I thought about, and you know, a lot of times when you look out at other people and you critique something in them, you're really critiquing something in yourself. That's like I think a true
Mhm.
cliche. But I was looking at it from your questions and thinking about this made me look at it from a different way, which is at a certain point, do you admire or do you hope to achieve something that you know that you're not really ever going to, that's not really in you, that you don't have
Mm.
it, whatever it is. And
Mm.
I was recalling that growing up, I loved reading about history and about it was mostly great men of history, and I always thought I want to be one of those people who, hold the fate of whatever in their hands and make those decisions. I want to be a general. I want to be,
Mm.
I that was sort of like my boyhood dream. Um and that is totally not who I am. I could, you know, I still remember once throwing a rock at a snake 2 decades ago and hitting the snake so it crawled back into the pond because my wife and kids were scared of the snake, and I still think about the pain that I caused the snake.
Oh.
So I could in another life, I could become a Buddhist and, like, do no harm to any creature. I feel bad. If I feel bad about that, I'm not gonna be a general sending people, over the trenches. So
Yeah.
I just wonder if, like, the heroes that I had, or even, even when I watch a movie or read a book and there's like a captain of whether it's industry or anything, and I see them being very sort of willing to do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
That's not me,
We need more
but I admire that.
models. We need more models for sensitive heroes. I don't think we have a lot of them in our modern day. I mean, I'm trying to think if there's I mean, maybe some of Tolkien's heroes, had a more sensitive side, but we really especially when you're talking about masculinity, it's really hard to find that vulnerable, sensitive, tuned in, not always sure of himself hero.
Yeah, it's they're almost you almost sort of view them as uh anti-heroes in a way, or non-heroes because they're, scared, or they're, you know, not
Yeah,
not willing to, or they're or we're attracted to people who are down on their luck, right?
yeah.
But
Did
that's not necessarily heroic either.
did you ever read, A Prayer for Owen Meany?
No. No, I don't
Oh,
think so. I don't
oh,
think
I
so.
think you would enjoy this book. It's been a long time, but Dave and I read it out loud to each other, which is especially fun because Owen Meany, the protagonist, is described as talking in a very high-pitched, squeaky
Oh,
voice, and so we had to act that out every time he talked, but he was a hero in that book in a very, very not in a sort of abstract way, but in a very clear way, and, yeah, yeah, it's one that you might wanna check in, and you probably have a pile of books on your
no, it's
bedstand.
always I've never for some reason, I've never, gotten into John Irving. I have no idea why, but
Yeah. Yeah, it's the only John Irving I've read. Um, so I wanna ask you, one of the things that you talk about in your writing is and I'm gonna pronounce this incorrectly, but you say noblesse oblige. Did I say it
yeah.
right?
Um, I'm not gonna correct you because my French accent is is awful.
Noblesse oblige.
I think that's right.
So I like so, you describe it as meaning, "To whom much is given, much is demanded." And there is something about that phrase itself that is very unfixed. In a way that in the sense that we have to, um everything holds its opposite, and contradictory experiences can live alongside one another. And I'm curious how that noblesse oblige is experienced in your life today or how that's evolved because I think that you've been holding on to that for decades and your experience of it has evolved through the years.
I think my, family always emphasized that it was important to be involved with your community and to and to give back. So, um, both both of both my parents were involved with um, various causes and their community, and my grandfather was also philanthropic as well, who I just wrote about. So it did come to me somewhat naturally to be involved in various organizations. It was mostly our kids' school, and that Debbie and I were involved in those. That was a community, but I would say really the last sort of 10 to 15 years, we've slowly become much more intentional about, well, we live in New York City. There's a lot of inequality. There's a lot of poverty here. We should be wrong for us to look away. We need to do something. Um, we need to make that a substantial part of what we do with our
Yeah.
time and our resources. And I think it's good also to model that for whoever.
Yeah.
Um, and there are a lot of people who do it, but you tend not to read about. You, I have this whole other thing where the wealthy are portrayed in such an unflattering way.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but it's a little bit of a catch-22, right? Because you're not really supposed to brag about what you do
Yeah.
and be quiet about it, and then what everyone hears is you know the awful stories or the portrayals that are unflattering.
Yeah. Does the wealth and the success, do they feel ever like a burden? Do the demand, when much is demanded because it needs to be reciprocated, does that ever feel like a burden?
No, I can't say that it does. I think it feels like a privilege to be able to do that. Um,
Mm,
although it doesn't, it feels like the what I call it more like I like the word justice
mm,
as opposed to like charity, because I think it would be unjust if we didn't do it. So it's
mm,
part of it is a privilege to be able to help people. And part of it is, to me, the avoidance of something that would be um, very bothersome
mhm.
if we didn't do it. So if that
Yeah.
if
Yeah,
that makes sense.
that
But
does. On the personal level, I'm curious, and I'm bringing this up because without too much background, my brother is married to a very wealthy woman, and so by default has come into a lot of money himself, and they're also very philanthropic. The burden that has been surprising to him is the questioning of people's intentions, the friendships that come because of the money instead of because of who he is. And I'm wondering, do you experience that?
rarely, I mean, sometimes you understand that people may be in contact with you because they eventually might want to ask a favor, or
Mhm.
so I I tend I tend not to tend not I don't think I experience that a lot, and
Hmm.
I think I'm pretty good to in sensing when things get a little bit uncomfortable with regard to
Yeah.
that. Um, so
Great.
so I think there's a responsibility that comes with it. I wouldn't call it a burden, but um, I think there's an easy way to give back, but if you're really after impact, and what the training that I've gotten, or what I've learned about giving, particularly when you're trying to address something like poverty, which is so multifaceted, is ask yourself, or what is the impact of what you're doing? And then ask yourself, does it satisfy the but for test?
The what?
The but, B-U-T, not B-U-T-T, but B-U-T, but
Okay.
the but for, meaning that if you didn't do this, it wouldn't happen. Which is a
Oh.
very it's a hard test, because if you're giving to a school or a university or hospital or whatever, it's rare to be able to satisfy that test because,
Mm,
you know,
mhm.
money is fungible. So, um, we both Debbie and I try to look for more grassroots organizations where we can really see that we're making, we're making a difference, and we can kind of measure the impact. So
Yeah. Wow.
it's a harder way of doing it. But you start off by saying we live sort of in a bubble, so we're we're typically around people who, while they are very familiar with the world, if they're not
Okay.
in the center of it. So uh,
So I'm seeing a sort of the highest outcome of your insecurity. If we want to go back to the beginning, the highest outcome is this deep sense of purpose and justice. That maybe it wasn't a conscious decision, but in a way, all of these experiences, these different decades of feeling like maybe didn't have quite the language for, you weren't cool enough, or you didn't have this, they were seeding a deeper longing to find foundational security in your life through service and through giving and through a real deep sense of connection to your community and family. Is that sound?
I think, when I thought about this, I think that I am definitely a better is it's made me it made me a better person to have these various insecurities along the way. Because if you don't have that, or if you don't aren't able to reflect on it, or then you could easily become uh, somebody who's very sort of narcissistic and megalomaniacal. And
Mm-hmm.
where what I've never been insecure about um, was that I always have taken pride, maybe too much pride. Some people who know me well would say too much pride in my mind and my ability to absorb information and to retain information and to make sort of these, connections. And so I never, I think that was helpful to offset some of the other insecurities. But if I didn't have the insecurities, then I wonder if I would have just
Hmm.
become this very kind of arrogant, spoiled person.
Hmm. Wow. And clearly you're not. Like I said in the beginning, you're able to present who you are with confidence and also without dismissing it. And I think that there often is sort of this expectation in our culture, if somebody has a lot of success, then they need to sort of hide it or dismiss it. And you are showing us that you can have a lot of privilege and success and love and be a deeply reflective, thoughtful, engaged human being in the world. And gosh, we need more models of that. So you're the hero that I think we were looking for earlier.
Well, that's very, yeah, that's sweet and kind, and uh, of you to say. And so thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you for that.
David, this has just been a really, really lovely conversation. Thank you for being vulnerable too. I know a lot of people wouldn't want to just come right out and say, it was just this awkward thing. And, then it's a really nice balance. And I feel that in your writing too. And I just am so grateful that you joined me today. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you. my friend, and I'm a fan of your work, and yeah, I look forward to seeing you again in whatever venue.
Perfect. Yes. Let's say this year because we know we have some other amazing books launching. So let's say this year. All
Absolutely. All right.
right. Have a wonderful
Thanks,
day.
Nick. You too. Bye.
Bye.